You guys ready for Robert? Yeah. Okay. I know, right? It's like we don't even need an introduction because you know who he is, but Robert is somebody that we've had come back multiple times. I just get so much from him. I get energized from him. I think Nito Cobain always said that you want to be around people who are walking the way you want to walk and doing the things that you want to do because it lifts you up, it inspires you, it drives you. And that's really, I think, Robert is so valuable because he's so high energy. He's always just so positive. And he's just a great entrepreneur. He understands the celebrity side of marketing. He's a brilliant marketer as well. All of you know that. And he just happens to be in our industry, which makes it even better. So when he yells at you about the numbers, you can't just, you can't argue with him. Like, you can yell at me because I'm a marketing person. What the hell do I know? But you can't argue with him. So Robert, as you guys know, he came to Canada with nothing. I mean, this is a man who his father came over here to escape Croatia. There was the communists were even threatened to put his father in jail if he spoke out against communism again. And so he went over to Canada. They had no money, literally nothing. I don't even think he spoke English when he first came here. And so he is a from-scratch entrepreneur, folks. Like, he didn't have the family behind him. He had everything that you would think would be negative and would make it so that he would not be a success story. He has been. He's a phenomenal marketer, like I said, and he's grown the Herjavec group, which is now just merged and changed, and he'll talk about that. They're $1 billion in revenue right now. So running a big company, starting out with him, and I think George Frempong and Sean, I forget Sean's last name, like 3 guys started the Herjavec group, and now they're $1 billion in revenue, and I think that was about 15, 20 years ago. So we're about to hear from a tremendous entrepreneur, and you guys are going to love it. So real quick, though, we have a video. If we could play that video. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Herjavec.
Thanks, Robert.
All right.
Nice to see you.
All right.
So excited to be here. I was listening in the back to your session. I took 2 pages of notes, and
that's my marketing plan. You wrote that on too.
Oh,
if you open it up the other way, that's the.
God, it was such an interesting session, though. It's fascinating. I mean, man, if you don't love numbers, you don't love business. My wife started a company a number of years ago, and I said to her, because you want to be supportive, and I'm a great spouse. I'm like, yes, I'm there for you. And she was like, yeah, but I don't want to look at any of the numbers. I just want to. It was like a dance fitness studio. Yeah. She goes, I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. I just want to go in and do the artist stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah. You just don't want to give advice. You know what I mean?
Like,
that's the thing.
What do I say?
Be supportive. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So just give everybody, I know they know who you are, right? But right. I remember, what was it, like a couple years ago, you were at 150 million, you're now at $1 billion.
Yeah.
Talk about just give everyone just sort of the lay of the land, what's been going on.
So I love Robin. I think she's the smartest person in our space in the world. And
there you go. We got that on video. I want that.
It's pretty rare I go somewhere even before I say anything and write 2 pages of notes. But you're always learning. That's another thing that I've noticed.
Yeah, and I'll just want that's the thing I have noticed about Robert. He always has like a pen and paper. He's constantly taking notes. That always impressed me about you. Even the first time we met, there was things I would say, and you quick and you jot it down, and you always are looking for things.
I think if you want to run a successful business, you need to be a student of growth, and you need to be a student of learning. Mm-hmm. And that seems so self-evident if you want to grow. And what I've learned so my background is I was an MSSP, an MSP, I started a small company with 2 guys, like Robin said, literally. And I had another company before that I sold for $30 million, which I thought in 1999. And I remember I thought it was the biggest check I'd ever seen in my life. I remember thinking my life will never be this good again. And I sold
How much was it?
$31 million. And I sold it to AT&T. And I actually, this is how ignorant I was about business and stuff. They gave me 3 checks because it was too big for 1 check from AT&T. And I went to the bank to deposit it. And there was like this huge lineup. So I'm like, oh man, crap. So I waited in line, and like the line went left, line went right. Finally, I get to the front, and I said, I'd like to make a deposit. And the lady said, did you fill out a deposit slip? And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't. And then I gave her the checks, and she goes, I'll fill it out for you.
Yeah.
But, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And the biggest challenge I had was, I always use the analogy, I was an ant on a brick, and I didn't realize the brick was part of a building, and the building was part of a city, and the city was part of a country. Like, I could only see what I could feel and touch on the periphery. I couldn't see bigger stuff. And so we started this business. We thought we'd do $5 million in sales the first year. And because in Canada, where we started, I was a big guy. And so we thought, I've been out of business for 3 years. We thought, this is easy.
Waltz in.
Yeah, people will remember me. And we learned something really, really valuable in that year because it was horrible. We did 400,000 in sales. Our forecast was 5 million. We did 400,000. And I didn't understand it. Like you, I'm like, well, how many meetings did we have? How many people did we go see? What's going on? And what I realized when I analyzed it all was nobody leaves good enough for potentially better. We're going to all these meetings, and because people knew us, that's another thing I learned is don't mistake a friend for a customer. Everybody was my friggin' friend. Everybody was happy to go out for lunch. Everybody was happy for me to take them golfing. Everybody was happy to give me the time of day. But then when it actually came time to buy, they were like, I'm with Bob, and he doesn't do a great job, but if he screws up, we'll call you. Which is a really nice way for somebody who likes you to say, get lost, I'm never buying from you. And so we did 400,000, and I would say to you that the one characteristic I had, not to pat myself on the back, that I always instilled in my team is, don't let your ego fool you when you look at data. And if anything, our company, we're very, very adaptable. We're confident, but we have no ego. Like if I learned something today to do it better, I guarantee you tomorrow, we're doing it. And nobody in my company will say, oh, well, but hang on, we've done it this way. And I'm like, it's not working. We're going to change. Anyway, so we did it. We built the company. Took us about 12 years to get to 100 million. We then entered the US market. And within 3 to 4 years, we got to about 250 million. And then about a year ago, for the first time, I owned 100% of the business. So it was a $250 million business. I owned 100% of it, which sounds really romantic. It just meant I was paying 100% of the bills. And, I had growth plans and all this other stuff, but everybody in this room that owns their own business knows this. You can have the best growth plans in the world, but what you really care about is paying for the lights at the end of each month, right? Because people will criticize my business and say, well, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I knew I had to do that, but I actually had to pay my rent. And so as you get bigger, the pressure of the things you need to do and the things that are required, the gap starts becoming bigger, especially as the business you're in accelerates. And with COVID, I thought, my business, all your businesses on a macro level, we're going to supercharge. And if you weren't about to supercharge, you were going to get left behind or acquired, and I don't want either of those things to happen. So we did an equity deal with a big equity firm, and in a year we went from 250 million to about 1.7 billion. So now we're about 1,200 people. We operate all over the world.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I got to tell you, the bigger the money, the bigger the growth, the faster you need to learn and the faster you need to process. I've learned more in the last 12 months than I did in the 3 years before. And I learned more going from 0 to 1 million, and Robin and I were just talking 1 million to 5. But anyway, so that's our story. I love this business. I mean, I love this business. You are in a business where the macro factors and the tailwinds could not be better. It could not be better. And as the economy may get worse, it's better for you. Because I think what people will do, I think we're going through a real shift where services are becoming more important than the tools. For a long time, especially in cyber, it was about buying the right software, the right endpoint, the right firewall, the right router. I got to tell you, there were 1,600 new security companies started last year.
Wow.
Customers are overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to buy. You know what they need? They need better service. They need a return on security and a return on investment. So you could not be better in a better industry, which is good. Here's the bad news. Everybody knows it. What you do is not a secret anymore. In a few years, we'd be like a secret club. We go out in the real world and be like, yeah, we're in a hot industry and nobody knows it. Guess what? Everybody knows it. So you got
competition. Well, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about one of the threats to the smaller guys are these, we call them super MSPs, and they're private equity-backed MSPs that are rolling up smaller ones and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they have private equity money behind it, so they can do sales and marketing teams, and they have more sophisticated, the SOC, they have a more sophisticated network operating center, engineers, et cetera. And so if you're small, it's going to be hard to compete. It's getting harder because of these super MSPs, and they're coming in, they're going downstream. They're going after the small SMB market. They're not just going after your customers.
So we only sell to enterprise. Even when I was small, I only sold to enterprise. I mean, the scale of the enterprise has probably grown. But you're right, Robin, there's a tremendous amount of pressure for my competitors to go down market. Because the sales cycles in the enterprise space take a long time, whereas in the SMB space, they're accelerated. So if you're an equity-backed MSSP and you need to grow, a lot of people think, well, I can just go down market. I can go to the SMB market. We don't do that. I know how hard it is to do what you do, but Robin's dead on. There are people sitting right now in boardrooms with that strategy.
Yeah. Exactly. So what would you say, if you were a smaller MSP today? So the small, they're not MSSPs. A lot of what we're talking about, they have to be one throat to choke for a small real estate office or a small medical practice. And compliance is becoming more important. And, so if you were in this group here, what would you be focusing on the next 12 months?
So I think that there's a huge advantage you have when you deal with an SMB and you're that one throat to choke. The big advantage is you have the complete trust of the customer, meaning that customer has a faith and a dependency on you to do something. So I would do two things over the next 12 months. The first thing I would do is I would look at the circle or the corollary of what I provide and see what else can I provide as part of that circle. Because you may be sitting there thinking, this is what I do, and this is where I need to take my product line, and these are the services I need to provide. But your customer may be thinking something completely different. They may be thinking that this type of a server, or this type of a device, or something else is something you should be providing them. When you have a position of trust, you need to widen the scope of the services you provide to people. It's that simple. Meaning, I always think of the analogy of a sandbox. If you're going to have one toy in that sandbox, you better get a lot more sandboxes if you want to continue to grow. If you want to stay in that sandbox, you better keep adding more toys to it.
Right.
And so, I walked through that hallway outside. How many vendors were out there?
I think about 30. At boot camp, though, we had something like 23 brand new and all mostly cyber vendors who are coming into this space. Yeah.
But I think my point is, your customers are buying EDR software, they're buying servers, they're buying phone systems, they're buying cloud services. Don't assume that you can't help them with that. And don't assume that people won't pay you for that. One of the areas is cloud services, just consulting. When I was small, the one thing I learned is I never charged enough for my service, but I was happy to pay a lawyer, a doctor, or somebody like that for their service. And it hit me one day, hang on a sec. Why am I okay paying my doctor to give me a referral letter, but not charge my customer for my advice? And it was me. I perceived that they were somehow more important because they were a doctor, they had more credibility and so on. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do over the next 12 months is be realistic about the scope and size and wallet share within my customer base, which kind of goes with the second one. Meaning, if you're the MSP for a real estate office and they're paying you $500 a month or $500 a year, whatever the dollar amount is, what percentage of the wallet share that they're spending in addressable market is that for you? It's great to say, oh, I've got X amount of customers and they're paying me $500. I'm going to double that. But is that based on data? Are they really going to double that? Are they buying stuff from other people? Do I have to steal market share? Can I add other services? And the third thing I would do is, what is my plan to go out and get more customers or increase that wallet share? Am I going to do that with salespeople, appointments? How am I going to do that? How am I going to actually go out, and what's my plan for that?
Yeah, and let's talk about the numbers, because he came in at the back of the session and we were talking, he overheard the numbers, and you said numbers really are the heartbeat. Talk a little, just kind of what you told me back there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I said something to Robin, which I've had to learn, is numbers, in my opinion, are your biggest predicator of failure. I've bought 16 businesses in the last 15 years, and we've had incredible track record with integration and mergers and all those kind of things. And out of the 16 businesses I've looked at, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince in the M&A world. So our ratio is typically 30-1. So for every one acquisition, we're actually looking at 30, meaning we're having dinners with 50 and all that kind of stuff.
So 30, you're taking a serious look at.
Serious look.
Letter of intent, right.
And so we've found that the businesses that fails and the business succeeds, you can always kind of go back and look at a number that they weren't doing. And I think that we in our business call it heartbeat. Your business has a heartbeat. And if you don't know that heartbeat, you're going to have a heart attack. I hate surprises. My team will tell you, I hate surprises. Bad news, I will fire you if you don't give me bad news immediately. People always want to give me good news. I get this urgent call. Robert, can you call me? It's urgent. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, hey, we just won $1 million deal. I'm like, yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you. But what about that customer that's really unhappy and threatened to leave us? We're working on it. I'm like, no. That shit I want to know right away.
Right, exactly.
The other stuff I can wait for. It's good news. But that's the other thing is the numbers tell a story of what your business is, and there's some basic data that you look at. Revenue, EBITDA, churn, all that kind of stuff. But there are certain numbers you got to know every day, right? And you've got to internalize those and share those with the team. And I think those are different for every single customer. And at the end of the day, you're running a data-driven business. Below $1 million, you're really not. And it goes back to the first point is, you got to decide, do I really want to grow? Do I really want to grow, or do I kind of want to grow? If I'm walking down the street and I find $1 million, yeah, I'm happy to be a millionaire. But if I actually have to work at it and track it and work really hard at it, I'm not really going to go down for a walk. And so your business isn't going to grow unless you're willing to grow. Scratch a small business that's not growing, and I will show you an entrepreneur that doesn't know what to do, doesn't want to grow, or has given up. Every small business comes down to you. There is no small business that is growing unless you are growing. It's just impossible. I mean, at my scale, I can hire a great team and I can kind of fake it for a while and not show up. If you're not showing up, your business isn't going to grow, right? I mean, it's just that simple. And I think the other thing is understanding what numbers are less important than others and which numbers are critical. One of the notes I made that I thought Robin was so dead on about that we were doing wrong is we used to track customer calls. And if I called a customer and we didn't engage within 7 reach outs or whatever we call it now, we would give up on that customer. We'd be like, well, obviously they're either really happy with somebody or they're not going to call us or whatever we lied to ourselves about because we didn't know. And then one day I was in the office and this brand new customer had signed $1 million deal with us, happened to be there, and they were going out for lunch. I said, hey, do you mind if I come along? And so I came along and I asked 1 million questions. It drives my wife nuts. Literally, we go out for dinner somewhere and somebody says, oh, I do this. I'm like, really? How does that work? What is it? What does it look like? What do you do? Who do you compete with? And so take this customer for lunch, and I noticed in the CRM, we had called him 26 times. And, we're out for lunch. He's like, oh, you guys are great. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm like, hey, Bob, we called you 26 times. Why didn't you buy from us the other times? And he looked at me confused, and he said, I didn't need anything the other 25 times. And I thought about it.
Sounds obvious. And then, yeah.
I mean, it does.
Yeah, it is obvious.
Like we're calling him about our great MSP service, and we're great at this, and we filled everything out. Why isn't he calling me back? He didn't need anything.
At that moment, when you were
at that moment.
Right.
And then the next question I asked is, so why did you call us this time? Well, because you called and I needed the service.
There's your marketing plan. You have it right there. I mean, yeah. We overthink it. No, but I mean, it's
so
funny.
what I realized is, if I can get in front of a customer when they need something, right, I'll get more business. But obviously, easier said than done, because you've got to do it on a continuous basis.
Ongoing.
There's no magic to I'm going to call them today because they're buying something tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. That's like I was saying, this is the farm list. You guys know, here's our target market, here's our qualified market, here's who we want as a customer. And then every which way you can bombard them with, whether it's social media, direct mail, calls, sponsor the events, the magazine. You surround them and you play in that pond.
It's so interesting you say that. That's another thing we've had to learn, and I'll share this with you. We used to be very big on phone calls. Right, because I think the one thing you learn, I've been on TV now for 20 years, and when you're on TV, you're pretty good at presenting. You become good at that. And our whole thing was you got to be in person, you got to be in a meeting. And so we were very visual, we were very gut feel. Doesn't matter what's written in the PowerPoint, it's all about how I make you feel. And I had which I still believe, and I had this great saying, it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. And I think it's really true in an in-person meeting. Well, just to show you how you never stop learning, guess what? COVID hits. No one's doing any meetings. Guess how we're doing Zoom meetings? Exactly how we used to do live meetings. Guess what happens to our business? We're not closing as many meetings. I started looking at the data, and I'm like, we have a problem. We used to close 72% of in-person meetings, which is very high for our industry.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
We're very good at it. All of a sudden, we're closing like 32%, and I'm like, there's something fundamentally wrong. So we go back at the things we say. We, like, when a customer says this, and we realized, you know what a customer's doing when you're on a Zoom call and you're talking? They're reading your PowerPoint. Our PowerPoint had one line. And all those competitors that we used to compete with that had really boring PowerPoints, that sucked in real life, they were killing us. Because the customers were listening to me and like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And so we completely repivoted our presentation stuff. Before I teach you to sell, tell me who you want to sell to and tell me what the situation is. We missed the shift to presenting with Zoom. Now, guess what? People want to get together again. Zoom, like COVID in most people's minds, is over, unless you're in Texas and Florida where it never happened. So it was incredible.
Yeah,
Just to run that state. I don't know. But, here's the thing our competitors missed. They're not going back to meeting. Customers want to get together, and most of our competitors are like, oh, can we do a Zoom call? And customers are like, okay. And we're like, hey, let's get together. And guess what people are saying? Yeah. They may not be able to get together at the office, but we're getting together at a Starbucks or for lunch or those kind of things. So our experience is people are social human beings. They want to go back. Yeah. So we've adjusted our presentations again.
Now, have you incorporated the Zoom? Like, have you taken a little bit of that and added
Very
as another
much.
Tool to the tool
Yeah.
set? So,
Yeah. So that's the other thing we've learned is we used to be very in-person, then we became very phone, and then we became very email. And we learned early on that LinkedIn is a super powerful connection platform. So every one of our salespeople has a premier subscription on LinkedIn. And I would say to you, the bulk of our connections with new customers actually come through LinkedIn.
And one-to-one conversations, like reaching, not these spam, broad, right.
Well, yes, but then we've also had to learn about what to say in those messages.
Exactly.
And as you know, there's it's one thing to get the attention of somebody. That's job number one. Get their attention. That's it. Get their attention. But then job two is once you have that attention, and it's very subconscious, it only happens for a very short amount of time, right? Think about this. Your customers are being called on by MSPs, network providers, vendors, every single day. And they all have the answer to their problems. So job number one is you've got to get a customer out of that mindset, subconsciously. Just break that association. Because when you call, their first thought is, here we go again.
Right. Yeah.
Another something. And to most customers, the dirtiest word in the world is what? Salesman.
Another salesman, right?
Another salesman.
Just another.
Trying to sell me something. Right. So number one is you've got to startle them out of their current mindset to get their attention. But then, when you do that, it opens up a little window. Next point is, what are you going to put through that window? What's the email you're going to send? What is the context?
What's the message?
What's the message?
Yeah.
Because if the message doesn't fit this disruption,
they ignore you.
You're going to go right back to square one. So you're going to get all excited. It's like, oh my God, I got Bob on the phone, or I got him on LinkedIn. This is great. And then you send some crappy email campaign. Hi, hope you're doing well. And as you know, the network market is really growing at unprecedented rates, and we can help you. You've completely lost them now, and you're right back to square one. So I think, but once you can do those two things, man, you're in the door.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I want to make sure you're lining up for questions. So if you have questions, I don't want to take all the time asking. So if you guys have questions, go up to the mic. And one thing I want to ask you, because we talked about the numbers, a lot of these guys are struggling with the sales and marketing numbers. And when you started, it was you and George and Sean.
It was 3 guys.
But you and George were out there calling, like you were out there meeting people, selling, right? That was what you were doing. But talk a little bit, like when you were small, how did you look at the numbers, the marketing and sales? How did you grow that? Who did you hire? How did you build that team?
Yeah, so it's funny, Robin. I always say one of the luckiest things that happened to me was I've been in an MSP business since I was like 21. So I've been doing this for a really long time. And I think one of the luckiest things that happened to me was I was non-technical and I happened to fall into a very technical world. So when I started my first business, I would compete with 10 people. The other 9 people were engineers. They were way more technical, knew way more than I did, and I was the only salesy guy. Here's the problem. Today, I'm a pretty good marketer. I'm pretty good at sales. I know how to dress. I know how to do all that stuff. When I was 21 years old, I was literally afraid of my own shadow. I could have not spoken to a group of people if you told me the riches of the world depended on it. It wasn't my background. I come from a world where my dad, who was like this blue-collar millwright, he was like, you know what? The key to life is just keep your head down, do a great job, and people will know that. I was like, yeah. And I used to believe that if you were great at something, customers and the world will come to you. What I had to learn very quickly is there is no such thing as genius in the darkness of a basement. You got to tell the world what you do. And you got to tell it to them in a way that is impactful to them, not to you. And so I think I was very lucky when we started because I couldn't do the other 9 things my competitors were doing. So I said, I'm going to do the things they're not doing. And guess what they weren't doing? Cold calls. They weren't spending any time on writing a campaign. They were like, oh yeah, when I get somebody on the phone, I'll send them an email.
Just talk to them.
Yeah, I'll just
talk to them.
We just kind of feel it out. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And so I would love to tell you that I knew all this, but I only did it because I couldn't do the other stuff. And then over time, success is a great affirmation in life of the things that are working. But failure is an even bigger affirmation of the things that aren't working. And so we always just kind of adjusted and just kept going.
You got it. All right, let's go to the questions.
Mine was based on your TV. As a Canadian, I'm glad to hear you're coming back to the Den, Dragon's Den. That's great, big news. Are you also staying in the Shark Tank as well? Like, what's the plan around that?
I am. I'm staying on both shows. And it's interesting. I got to tell you the funny. So our TV show is now huge, and it's the mean bald guy and I started the show in Canada.
They know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And so a funny thing happened. The show became bigger than my company. And so we go see customers, and they would think I'm running this really big company and we're really small. And my biggest competitor at the time was IBM. They were telling customers, oh, Robert's gone Hollywood. I mean, this is just in Canada. And that really offended me. And I think it's maybe because I'm not an engineer, and I wasn't very technical. I'm very technical now. It made me feel like, somehow they think I'm disingenuous.
Yeah.
So we told our team, never talk about the TV stuff. That has nothing to do with who we are. And it took a long time to realize, hang on a sec.
That is what's making it.
This is something that's different about us. And we really, it's great for our business now, but sorry.
Oh, I'm just curious if you're going to be doing the 2 of them.
I am.
And what brought you back to the Den?
We did an equity deal in the U.S. With a big equity firm, so we moved the family back to Canada, and I love the whole story. You know, when I left Canada, I was not in a great place, struggling personally, struggling business-wise, and, you know, 6 years later, we're running a multi-billion-dollar company with over 1,000 people. Just love the story, and I think what I love about the story is it doesn't matter where you begin, it's all about where you want to go and where you end up.
Yeah. And I want to make a point, though, because the show, I remember you saying that the show kind of breaks the ice. You talk about they're getting all these calls, what makes you different? And that celebrity factor that your competition's always going to try and pick whatever they aren't to what they are, right? And use it again. You're Dancing with the Stars, and you know what I mean? Like, so it was interesting. I'm glad that you saw that celebrity, because that's what I teach these guys, is become a mini celebrity to your customers.
That's such a great point, because we didn't even understand. And by the way, it all seems self-evident. A year and a half ago when we did the equity deal, so I did an equity deal with the 10th largest equity firm in the world. Like, the people that work there are some of the smartest people in the world. They look at our business and they say to me, you know, that whole celebrity thing, we got to let that go. We need you to stop doing that. And, you know, I've been doing it for 20 years. There are days I get tired, and they caught me on a tired day. And I'm like, you're right. I'm going to stop doing that. So we stopped doing it. I actually went to quit Shark Tank, and I sat down with them, and I said, this has been great, but I'm going to leave, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, no. By the way, you have 3 years on your contract. If you don't come back, we're going to sue you. And I'm like, you're right. I love the show. What, was that me? Guess what our sales organization says to me 8 months into the deal? Hey, what are we doing? Why are we never talking about that? Who does not realize this is a great icebreaker?
Totally.
And to your point, that's exactly what we taught our team is, look, I'm just something to talk about, but when you're on the phone, you're the celebrity.
Right.
And people say, oh, you know, I'm not a celebrity. And I mean, it's crazy. We have a woman on our team who went to the Olympics. And she would say to me, oh, I'm not the celebrity. You know, I don't feel comfortable talking about no, I don't. And I'm like, okay, if I went to the Olympics, you all would have heard about it 20 times by now.
Right.
Like, if I won a medal at the Olympics, it would be around my neck.
Right, every day. Right?
Like, I go to a customer meeting, I'm like, oh, God, my neck is so, hurts. I do a lot of work with a homeless shelter in Seattle. I've been involved in them for many years, and the priest that runs it gave me one of the best business tips I've ever had anybody give me. So imagine the scenario. This is a Christian homeless shelter in the worst part of Seattle, and you can only come to the shelter if you want to give up an addiction and you're homeless. Like, it's bad. And he said to me, I said to him, why do you do this? Do you ever get depressed? Because it's not a lot of like, hey, I'm here. Like, it's a pretty unhappy environment on the surface. And his name is John. I said, John, how do you not get depressed? And he looked at me and didn't understand my question. He said, depressed about what? I said, well, look at all these people. It's so sad, and there's so much pain. He goes, Robert, I have never met anything in life that is more fascinating than another human being. And I was like, wow. And think about that. There is something about you in this room that makes you super special. There's something. You may not think there is, but I guarantee you, having worked with people that are at the end of what they think is a horrible life, there is something special about them. There's something special about you. And if you can get what is special about you to resonate with another human being, that's where the connection is made. People mistake relationships with connection. People think that a business relationship is somebody that likes you, knows you, you've taken out for lunch. You know, one of the things that drives me absolutely batty is I'll sit down with the sales rep and I'll say, how's it going? So, this deal looks great. I'm like, why? Oh, they like us. They like us. I'm like, how do you know they like us? I say, oh, we went out for lunch last week. Make that connection. And I think that's one of the things is be that mini celebrity. When you're on that phone call, if you're part of a compliance committee, tell the customer that. You know, if your kid is a world-class athlete, tell the customer that. If you're big in your community, tell the customer that. If you love car racing, tell the customer that. If you love Formula One, if you love golf, if you love something.
I mean, when we went to your office, I mean, it was, you had the motorcycles there, you had the pictures on the wall, and you kind of walk through and it's just a fascinating kind of, it's almost like going through sort of like, not a museum, but sort of a display of what's the DNA of this company. And it was, you got energy, I got power, I got fun, I got excitement. And that was just from the stuff that you had sitting around, you know?
And the reason we have all that stuff sitting around is when a customer, and it's funny you say that,
Yeah.
we had all this plotted. We wanted our office to be something where we could make a connection with every customer. So if that customer loved golf, we had a bag that we bought from Arnold Palmer. I mean, it's just, you know, and the people that aren't in sales or in the business of making human connection, oh, we see that as, oh, that's so disingenuous. I'm like, no. People buy from people they like. And it's establishing that connection quickly.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. All right, we'll go over here. Question?
Robert, long-time listener, first-time caller. All us old radio people will understand that. But you're right. I mean, connection, it's it. They don't buy from people they don't like, no doubt. My question to you, though, is you said in LinkedIn you learned to startle the customer to get their attention, and then you could make that second good request or good ask, maybe like, hey, we're having a webinar or something in your industry. Would you like to attend? How did you startle?
So it's a great question. One of the things we did is we started using our campaigns and really analyzing each word and each line and understanding that element of the subconscious mind share. Most people that do campaigns kind of look at it as fluffy, you know, big front end, fluffy intro, how are you? And then we'll put the meat at the bottom. Like that's where we're going to get them. And what we realize is 98% of our customers aren't making it to the meat. They're trying the appetizer and they're like, yeah, this sucks, and they're out of here. And we're showing up with the steak and going, where'd they go? And
so short attention span.
It's actually more than that. It's actually, there's a subconscious element of people's ability to want to retain information. The average human being is overwhelmed with information. And so what's happened as the world gets busier, people's willingness on a subconscious level to engage is actually shrinking. But the other thing that's increasing is once the engagement level opens, they actually want to engage more because that, in their mind, they can stop working with all those other people. So what we started doing was trying to put something in the headline that was interesting enough to make that connection. And then...
Right. It sounds like something I teach, right?
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
So we call, like what I call that fluffiness, it's like, I'm a copywriter, and copywriters call that clearing their throat. So it's like when somebody, like when I sit down with you, they're like, well, hi, how are you? Hope business is good. As you know, it's all, we call that clearing your throat. Like, stop clearing your throat. Just get right down to it.
Oh, wow, is that what you, that's great.
Yeah, because it's just like they're preparing to say something. And, you know, so it's the same thing. It's the lumpy direct mail we send you. It's the emails with the subject line. It's the curiosity. Curiosity is the best thing. You know,
Yes.
try, I have your passwords. That's a good, you know what I mean? And like, you know, or something, you know, something, and you guys are like, you're laughing because you know something like that. But you know this, Steve.
Yeah, but on LinkedIn, though,
It's
how
the
you
same,
break through.
well, but it would be the same headline. It's, you know, I mean, I don't think he's,
Every form of social connection gives you the opportunity to put in some text there or some connection or something. But the thing we started doing on what a lot of my sales guys, going back to the mini celebrity, for me, it's easy to get a connection on LinkedIn, like, no problem. What a lot of our sales guys and girls are doing is they're making sure their LinkedIn profile has connections to interesting articles that the person wants to come in. Whenever you send a connection to somebody, what they're going to do is, who is this person? And then they're going to look at it. And if your LinkedIn profile isn't an article on malware, look, and they're in the malware business, why would they call you? Because you're a security guy or you're a network guy? Like, you have to stop being broad. The smaller you are, the narrower the focus of what your business does.
Yeah. You got
Thank
it.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi. You had mentioned earlier selling the return on investment, or specifically the return on security. I'm curious how you went about that and what you might tell us about convincing clients about the return on security.
Most of our clients are focused on cost versus competitor. So let's say I'm selling an endpoint software, or I'm trying to sell somebody a router. Customers are comparing the cost of that to the other three things they're looking at, or the cost of your service versus the other things we're looking at. Don't get me wrong, if there's no competitors, I don't do this.
So, Robert, real quick, can you clarify who you're selling to? Are you selling to the CEO, CFO? Are you selling to IT director? Who are you selling to? Because when we have this ROI discussion, I think the ROI for an IT director or leader in an organization, what they consider ROI, would be different than a CEO. So who are you selling to?
Well, that's a great question.
Right.
And that's the thing where a lot of people get confused. I'm always selling inevitably to the person that can cut the check. I realize I have to get the influencer. The influencer to me is the gatekeeper. But if in the organization, so that's a great point. Even at our level, we have a lot of salespeople. They still screw this up. So the first question is, if you're dealing with the technical director, the IT director, and he says, I'm going to buy from you, Robert, or it looks good. One of the things I always ask is, that's great. Are you signing it? Like, are you going to sign the PO? Well, no, I don't actually sign the PO, Robert. Robin signs the PO. Okay, that's great. I just want to know what the process is. And when you go to Robin, what kind of questions does she ask? Well, she asks me, did I look at anybody else? But does she ask you technical kind of questions, like what's it going to do? No, she doesn't do that. Oh, okay. Or yeah, she does. She really wants to know how this technology is going to work. Well, Bob, do you mind if I go with you and present to Robin? I want to make sure that she really understands. I know you're going to do a great job. So I think that's number one, is you got to understand who the ultimate buyer is, and you got to understand who the influencer is. So let's say I'm selling to the influencer as the first gatekeeper. And another thing is, if the influencer is truly the gatekeeper and has to buy into that decision, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they think that the CEO will overrule their team. I have to tell you, I used to believe that too, because I'm like, well, screw Bob. If he's not going to buy from me, I have a relationship with John, and John's the CEO. I'm just going to call him. I can count on one hand the amount of times that's worked. And I'm telling you, in companies where the CEO is one of my best friends, and I was like, oh, this is a cakewalk. Of course they're going to buy from us. I know Bob, the CEO. And they didn't buy from us. I called Bob the CEO, and guess what the CEO, like any good CEO, says? I'm going to stand behind my team. I'm sorry, right. Robert, I love you.
100%.
Let me go back and look at it. Maybe they made a mistake, but I got to tell you, I'm not going to overrule my team. So going back to your question, there's 3 products. My first thing I try to do in a highly competitive situation is try to transition from price today to price tomorrow. If I can get you to think about price tomorrow, then it allows me to introduce the concept of value. it's very difficult to have a value-based conversation when there's 3 competitive products and they're all within X amount of points, and the customer's like, well, you know, Bob, you're not the cheapest. We're looking at 2 other things. So you've got to disrupt the conversation, because if you can't disrupt the conversation, then all you're left with is price. People fail when they don't understand the language being used and they sell the wrong value proposition against what the customer wants. And there are times where we try all that and it doesn't work, and then we make a decision. You know what? For me to win this deal, I got to drop the price for 15%. Because if I'm not going to win it, I'm going to lose the customer. Then we make the call. But the first thing we do is we say, hey, I love the fact that you guys are being price conscious. That's great. But I'm sure you guys have done this. What's going to be the price of this service or software in a year from now? And then usually customers are like, what do you mean? I said, well, this is just a tool that you have to build on, or a service you're going to build on. One of the things we do a really good job of is, I can let you talk to customers, is we've had customers for years stay with us. And one of the things I'm really proud of, Bob, is that we were able to work with them. I mean, there are things I sell today that I didn't sell to the customer 5 years from now. But guess what? I still provide the service for them. They still trust me, and I'm still with them. And the cost of transitioning your service, there's a cost to that. You got to run a process like this. You got to hire new people. Your team's got to learn new people who to call. And it also, for me, comes down to how critical your business is. Because sure, you may switch, but then there's new people to deal with. What if something goes wrong at 2 in the morning? So let me just ask you that question. Have you guys considered that? And there's no perfect answer, but I think you've got to understand, where you are. And the company that usually wins is the one that set the table. And the best way to set the table is to set traps for your competitors.
Amen. Right? ROI, we talk about selling cybersecurity is selling prevention. Prevention is one of the hardest things to sell, especially when you're big enterprise, their risk level's higher, so they have to buy it. Like they can't, it's not an option.
50% of the people that buy from us are compliance.
So they have to. So the answer, what you're trying to sell, the ROI is Robert versus me, I might be 10% more. I only have to sell the 10%. I don't have to sell, I just got to sell the 10%. Now, what's the ROI? Well, the ROI to an IT director is job security, and if there's a breach, hopefully there's never a breach, you are brilliantly prepared, you're the hero of the organization, you don't get fired, you get a promotion because you made good decisions. That's the ROI for you, and I got to give you that ROI in advance. Yeah, you're going to save 10% now, but you're going to burn your ass later when you're dealing with a breach. And are they capable of really handling it? That's the ROI. Now, if I'm selling to a CEO, the ROI is a little different. We hope there's no ROI because we hope there's never an event where there is an ROI, right? So I think what you have to do is know who your customer is. IT directors are different than CFOs, and CFOs are different than CEOs. And by industry, small businesses, the ROI is different than in a big business, right? Because the ROI, like we were just talking about HIPAA, and selling HIPAA to a small doctor. And Branda's here, we were just having this conversation. Small doctor says to her, HIPAA's a joke. What, are the HIPAA police going to come get me? Because he's a small medical practice. He's never been audited. The guys he golf with never get audited. So they're not, in their mind, they're like, I don't need to be. So we got to make the ROI not about being HIPAA compliant, but we got to say to that doctor, we know you care about your patients. The ROI may be, maybe you're okay with, you get a breach, maybe it's only cost you $250,000. And maybe you can afford to miss $250,000. I don't know. Your insurance might cover some of it. Maybe it doesn't. But let me ask you about your elderly patients that you take care of. Cybersecurity, we know they're the most vulnerable of society. They fall for scams really easy. Do you want Martha, who is your 83-year-old patient, who has her medical records stolen, who then gets her credit card, her identity stolen, and Martha, who's 83, and you want her to be a victim because you think HIPAA's a joke. Is that where we are? So you see what I mean? The ROI is different. So I think you got to think it's what you're saying.
It's so interesting. Yeah. Wow, it's so interesting. So at the enterprise level, we never have these conversations. And in fact, part of our speech for our salespeople, you know, we have all these workflows and charts. If a customer doesn't think they need security or managed service, hang up the phone. Like why am I even talking
Selling
about
the virgins.
But exactly what you're saying used to happen to us years ago because it wasn't what it is today. I mean,
they're dealing with it in a smaller,
yes, I'll share with you one of the things that here's the thing about us. Robin actually knows what she's doing. I had no idea what I was doing. We tried everything. And we weren't smart enough to stand in front of the stove, see that it's hot, and not put our hand on it. So, you know, we're the kind of company I was like, you know, put our hand on the stove and goes, wow, that was really painful. Let's not do that again. So everything I'm telling you, I've done 20 different ways that didn't work. So we had that conversation. One of the things that really worked well for us, we learned pretty early is, to Robin's point, for some people, security or HIPAA or whatever it might be is a carbon monoxide detector. Meaning, there's nobody you're going to call and say this question to them and say, hey, do you think it would be good for you to have a carbon monoxide detector in your house so your family doesn't die in a carbon monoxide leak? Who's going to say no to that? Nobody. But guess what? The next question is, can I sell you a carbon monoxide detector? How many people are going to say yes immediately? So we used to get these questions, we're trying to explain it, and we realized something early on, that most of our competitors, when we were small, never talked about price. What we realized was price to them was like talking about sex to your teenager. Nobody wanted to do it. And we said, again, I want to differentiate. I want to stand out. So we started talking about price all the time. So I'd go in, and the customer would, you know, have competitive quotes, and I say, hey, Bob, I just want to tell you right up front, we're going to be more money. We're going to be slightly more than the other guys. And let me tell you why. We just made a conscious decision in our business that uptime was more important. We believe that security is not just about you, but about your patience and your credibility. And, you know, on the surface, I know this is a lot of money you don't want to spend. I hate my life. I sell something nobody wants to buy. Can you imagine how hard my life is, Bob? But that's the goal I was given. So I understand how HIPAA may not affect you and your friends and so on. But I got to tell you, I see the world on a long-term basis. And I'm sure that you don't want to be a doctor for a year or two, and it's not about the money you lose. It's the brand and the reputational risk to you and the pain for your patients. Nobody wants to be that guy whose patient had a breach because of them. Anyway, let me go back and tell you why I'm 10% more. And all of a sudden, I'm the guy talking about price, and something goes down. Here's another interesting thing that we learned. Again, pain. We were able to find out what the other people are charging in like 85% of the cases. Most of our competitors, you know, when we buy companies, they're like, oh, you're in a company, oh, great. And what are the other guys charging? And most sales reps would like look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, did you ask them? Well, they took them. You're joking, right? They're not going to tell me that. I'm like, well, they're not going to tell you if you just come out and ask them, but in the course of a conversation, if you explain to them why you need to know, I'm pretty sure they're going to tell you. Like, no, impossible. And then we go out and we'd see the customer and we have this conversation. I'd be like, look, Robin, I don't want to waste your time. Let me tell you what we charge, why we charge it. And I'm not asking you to tell me some competitive information, but just tell me, are we in the range? And here's why. And you'd be shocked how many times a customer will just come out and tell you and say, well, Bob, I really liked your proposal, but you're 15% more, and I just don't know how I'm going to justify it to my CEO. Well, great, let's work on that. And maybe I can bring the price down a little bit to help you with that. Maybe I can defer some of that price in the second year. Maybe if we did a 3-year contract, I can charge you a little less for year 1, and I can grade in those years, because maybe Robin will appreciate, the proofs in the pudding kind of argument. Like, look, he's been with us, like, price is not dirty. Talk about it.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. All right. We're going to have to make this the last question. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Tim.
man.
All right, if you can do it quick.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
So,
bitches, we have to be quick.
I think this should be quick.
Okay.
Good morning. I love what you mentioned about us being the limiting factor of our personal lives and our businesses. So I'm curious to know, what are the top 3 behaviors or activities that you've done and continue to do in your life to keep growing?
Boy, that's a great question. Tim?
Adam.
Adam,
That's
sorry.
Tim's behind him.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
the one I
All
was
right.
saying, Tim.
So I mean, I could talk 6 hours about this. When I was struggling, we were small, the business wasn't getting bigger, and I went through a really painful time where I didn't understand why, right? And I started to believe all the bullshit that everybody in life was telling me. Meaning, when I started, everybody said to me, the key to being successful, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In order to make money, you got to have money. Well, my dad swept floors in the factory. My mom was a receptionist. I have a classical English literature degree. I was screwed. But I didn't believe I was screwed, so I started a company. We got to about $1.5 million, and I felt really successful, and then we stopped growing. And I was like, maybe people were right. Maybe this is what it is, right? I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't get into those fancy universities. I'm never going to have a big company kind of thing. And then I always think you will change your habits when the pain of your existing situation is great enough. And some people never change because their current situation in life never becomes painful.
It's not that bad, yeah.
There are 2 kinds of people in life. There are people that wake up every day and say, I am friggin' gonna kill it. I am gonna go. Mark Cuban, on our show, good friend of mine, he will say to you, when he was 12 years old, he was gonna be a billionaire. He woke up every day and said, I'm gonna be a friggin' billionaire and nothing's gonna stop me. I will tell you, that is 2% of the population. When I was 12 years old, all I did was wake up and say, I don't want to be poor anymore. I got to a situation where the pain of my current life was so great that I had to make a decision. I was either going to change my current situation or I was just going to accept it. And I wasn't willing to accept it at the time. And so when I looked in the mirror, I realized the reason the business isn't growing is because I'm not growing. Like, I'm not growing. What have I learned about my industry? What have I learned about the business? None of that stuff. So what I started doing was I started following economic news. Whereas everybody I was competing with was either a security guy or a network guy. They weren't following the equity stuff. So I started reading first of all, I taught myself what an equity firm was. And then I started looking at where they're investing money. The one thing about equity and venture capital is they invest ahead of the curve. So tomorrow's hot new technology is something that's being invested in today. So I want to be able to talk about it. So the habits I do today is I read a lot. Like I follow a very diverse set of data points. One of the things, for example, I track to see if how bad the recession is going to be is jet sales. I look at how many jets are being bought. I look at jet usage. I look at yacht sales. I look at and I love all that. It happens, it's good because I like all that stuff anyway, but I track disparate things. The other thing I do is, this is not a judgment, I work out every day. I run almost every day. My natural habit is to play. I love to play. I love to have fun. I love to play. But guess what? In running a business, there are days where you just got to work. You can't play. So I run every single day. And people think I love running. People say, oh my gosh, I wish I loved running like you. I'm like, I friggin' hate running. There is not a single day before my run where I try to lie to myself and find an excuse not to run. But I run every day. And up until near the tail end of the run, I don't feel good. I feel horrible, and it sucks, and I hate it. But I do it. And I believe if you're hard on yourself, life will be easy on you. Successful habits are simply the disciplines that you put onto yourself in life. And so I'm a highly, highly disciplined guy because I force myself, because I know if I wasn't, it would be really easy for me to go the other way. And then the third thing I would say to you is I am customer fanatically driven, but not just about the stuff I sell to them, about understanding what makes our customers successful. Hey, Bob, I know we provide this, service for you. Could you tell me a little bit about what your company's working on? Like what's important for you guys? You mean in network stuff, Robert? No. Just like when you're getting together with your CEO and your team, like what are the things that you guys are worried about? Oh, well, we've got this competitor. We're expanding in a new region. Oh, well, Bob, I'd love to work with you on that. We don't sell right now in California, but you know what a great job we do. And if you guys are expanding out there, I would love if you guys give me a chance to support that office also. Can I help you with and I think it has to be genuine, right?
Yeah.
Like if you show up and you got like 4 points, and I got to tell you a quick funny story. I had a sales rep one time. He was a great sales rep, but he didn't know how to interact with people, with human beings, right? So his name was Frank. I'm like, Frank, man. Like he would go into a meeting and be like, thanks for seeing me today. Do you guys have this, this, and this? And I'm like, dude, like you got to get in there, ask him something. He's like, oh, got it. Okay, got it. So next meeting, he's like, okay, hi, great weather today. All right.
It's hard to train that.
Like,
I mean,
I'm like, that's not genuine.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. All right, Tim, what's your question?
All right.
Robert, last quarter, we had Jack Daly talking to us about building teams of A players. You've really communicated your understanding of that human connection. What's the one thing that you look for in a new A player?
The first thing I look for is where we need the A players. Because trying to build a team of just A players is like saying I'm going to build a basketball team and only hire Michael Jordans. It's never going to happen. You are never going to build a large-scale, scalable business with just A players. Never going to happen. So but you need more U's, I'm assuming you're an A player, to round out the team. So the first thing is...
You guys shouldn't laugh at that. It's not nice. I'm just saying, give the guy a break, all right? Okay.
So the first thing is, where do I need them? If you're great at sales, then I want an A player who's great at network or operations or something like that. The second thing is, and I've had to, learn this over time. Again, hand on the stove. Ow, that really hurt. One of the greatest things I look for in an A player is their ability to lead a team. What I used to look for when I was smaller in an A player was somebody who could do it.
Do the job.
So I just hired a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. Up until about a year and a half ago, I would have never hired this guy. You know why I've never hired him? Because I don't think he's the best sales rep out there. Because if you're going to lead my sales organization, man, you better be the best sales rep out there. We have over 1,000 people. There's nobody who can do enough heavy lifting to get us over the finish line every single quarter. So I hired a guy who has a proven ability to build the people underneath them. Because to build scale, you're actually going to have to hire a lot of B players, and you're going to have to make decisions about your C players pretty quickly. So if you have somebody at the A level who can make that and continuously make people Bs, get the Cs out of the organization, then it takes off a lot of time for you.
It's like Jack Welch. He had the top 20%, the middle 70, and the bottom 10. And Jack was called Neutron Jack because he always fired the bottom 10%. He said the 70% are the heart and soul. That's why you have systems and process. That's what I learned from you. And I tell the story with your level 1 engineers. I remember we came into your office, which I would love to do again. Would that be a ridiculous idea if we would
No,
come up to your...
our office is now in Kansas City, our head office.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
All right. So, but you had
Don't
said...
go to Kansas City, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
You will gain 15 pounds.
Okay.
They have the best barbecue in the world.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you were talking about your engineers. It may have been even your HR person when we were there, and you said you tried forever to retain these level 1 engineers, and it was just really hard, and you're like, so you finally figured out that we're only going to keep them for about a year, and after a year, they're either going to be recruited away somewhere else, we're going to fire them because they suck, or we're going to give them opportunity up. So you really dialed the systems and processes of that in. That's like with our SDRs or different levels, is systems and processes for the middle, but you have to have good leadership.
I'll leave you with this, Tim. Something I had to learn, and again, I want anybody in this room to think I know all this. I'm literally telling you, hand on the stove, burn 20 times. Biggest thing I've had to learn in hiring, from being small to running a relatively large business, is I used to have this saying, I was so proud of this, I would never hire somebody I couldn't sit next to on a transatlantic flight. Because, we got to get along. And now I realize, oh my God, that is such BS. So the guy I founded my company with, who's been with me now 30 years, never been to his house for dinner.
George?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I have a huge amount of respect for him. He has a huge amount of respect for me. But you know what? He's just a different guy than me. The things he likes, I don't like. You don't need to hire friends. And I learned this when I went to training. I like to work out and stuff. And the Army Rangers invited me to the training session.
Oh, that's cool.
Kicked my ass.
Yeah, it's cool.
Kicked my ass.
That'd be fun.
And at the end of it, we had a debrief with the major or corporal that ran the entire training facility for the Army Rangers. And if anybody from the military, you know how hard it is to become a Ranger. And I made a comment to him. I said, oh my God, these are all A players. Like if you're one out of 73 people who apply get into the Rangers. I think there's only 2,500 active duty Rangers in the entire U.S. Like it's impossible to get in. And they're all A players. And I said to him, oh my gosh, when these guys aren't in combat or on duty, they must hang out all the time. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Why do you think that? And I said, because they're such a great team. And he said, you don't understand the meaning of teamwork. Teamwork is not a bunch of people who like each other. Teamwork is a bunch of people who respect each other and understand the mission and the goal of every person on that team. If they happen to like each other, that's okay, but it is not a criteria for me to build a great team. And I was like, whoa.
That's a great lesson.
Because I'm only hiring people I want to have lunch with.
Right.
Who am I going to have lunch with tomorrow?
Right. And it's funny you say that because there are people, like if you are growing a business and you are running it, there may be people who do a fantastic job, but you have wildly different ideas and philosophical, political viewpoints and stuff like Megan. She hates me pointing her out, but like Megan, die hard Bernie, right? Sanders, and I'm not. Let's just say that, okay? But here's what's funny. So back when Trump was running for Oliver election, I said, look, if Trump wins, I'm going to give you a raise, right? Just to mess with her. But no, what the point is, it's funny but we get along great. Do you know what I mean? In other words, you can have different religious backgrounds, belief systems, political views, and the key word you said is respect. Because as long as I respect her and show her respect for her viewpoints and she respects me and we know what the goal is, then we get along like peas and carrots.
One of the greatest values everybody gets out of Robin, not to toot your horn, is one of the greatest challenges when I was small was you begin to drink your own Kool-Aid. Meaning you have a business, you're the boss, we're a dissenting voice on your strategy. How do you know what good looks like? You know, and I built a pretty big business thinking, like when we sold to the equity firm, we're about 250 million. And first thing they did, because you know they run a $70 billion fund, they invest in 170 companies. They showed up one day and they said, "Oh, this is great. Love to have you as part of our family. Here's a book of world-class metrics for your business." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, here's exactly what your margin should be. Here's exactly how many calls you should be making." It was a book. And guess what? We were nowhere near those world-class metrics. But I realized, who was telling me that? It's not like you're calling one of your competitors and saying, "Hey, I lost this deal. Why don't we huddle and figure out why I lost it?" And I think if you have people on your team with different voices, that always helps you. Because you're not going to win by being the same. You got to be different.
Right, right. 100%. I think that's great. All right, guys, we're going to have to wrap up. Thank you, Tim. Let's hear it for Robert.